This is the Free Spirits of L&D podcast, where we talk about life as a freelancer in the fascinating world of learning and development, and ask our guests all the questions you wanted to know but were maybe too afraid to ask. Yes, we even talk about how we get business and what we all charge. At the end of each episode, each guest gets to set a bonus question for the next one. So whether you're thinking about taking the leap, brand new to freelancing, or an experienced freelancer, you won't want to miss this. In this episode, our special guest is Kirsty Lewis. Kirsty is the founder of the School of Facilitation, which he set up a decade ago to help level up the way learning is designed. And they've built a global community of facilitators and trainers all working together to improve their practice. Welcome, Kirsty.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're so welcome. It's a treat. Shall we start with an exploration of your journey into freelancing? So I just touched on it's been a decade of founding the School of Facilitation. What was that journey like?
Well, it's a decade of SOF, but I originally left corporate land in 2008. So I've worked for myself since then.
Could you maybe describe the moment you realised that you needed to leave?
So it's very specific, and I tell everybody this story, so I'm sorry, some of you may have heard this one before. It is April the 7th, 2007, and I am in a workshop at the Queen's Club in London. A friend is road testing a new outcome workshop, and you had to go with an outcome, and then what you did all day was shape it and craft it and look at the values behind it and the beliefs and all the actions you could take to achieve that outcome. Except I am very classic style, hadn't read the instructions as to what was going to be happening. I was just turning up to help a mate. So when they said, oh, you need an outcome, what's your outcome? I just literally sat there and went, I don't know. So I just made one up that I thought sounded interesting. Now, it must have been somewhere in my psyche because I said, oh, okay, then it's April 2009 and I'm an NLP trainer and coach and I earn £5,000 a month. And I thought that was outrageous, audacious, considering I worked in Diageo, I was in a global sales role, I was living the life, flying around the world, b.ed Gold Card, just beautiful drinks, beautiful brands, really good people that I worked with. Anyway, so I left the workshop that day and I was like, I think I'm going to leave. That's the pinpoint moment. I resigned in October that year.
So you've resigned, you've made the big decision about what's going to happen next, and you've set up a business. What were those early days like?
So before I left, I had done a lot of planning and preparation. So I was really clear, like I had money saved. I knew who I wanted to, I had an associateship already set up. So a company that I was going to go and work for. So I was doing sales training at the time. I can remember because it was a start of a calendar year. I remember getting very sick. Super sick. Actually, I had tonsillitis and a really bad cold. And I think it's something that people don't talk about is when you leave a corporate or an organization, you're in a cocoon. And when you step out, you are suddenly like you have to do everything yourself. I remember that. So I used to talk about leaving the Diageo duvet. So that was one thing. But then I've also noticed this is a pattern that people often get super sick after they leave an organization. And I think it's our body re-regulating, repatterning itself, almost just going outward breath. And then it keeps breathing out and doesn't breathe back in for a long time because it's just righting itself. And so, yeah, I remember getting very sick in the February time. I can see that. I was excited, but there's always a bit of nerves. I remember writing to my accountant that I had and saying, when can I pay myself? And he said, you can pay yourself whenever you want. I was like, I can? He's like, yeah. But I was so conditioned in that space of, you know, an organization telling me what to do, when to do it, how to behave, that to suddenly have to make decisions for myself was like,
It's part of the cocoon, isn't it? There's all these little systems and models that we become almost kind of subservient to, and it starts to determine how we run our lives. Like I remember having the same conversation with my accountant. I assumed you'd need to do it at set intervals or when there was a certain amount of money in the bank, and they were just like, no, you could just it's your company, you can do what you want.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay. So and actually, for a while, I don't know how you handled this, but in my case, I kind of created an artificial pattern of income just so that it kind of didn't feel too weird to have these sort of kind of little spiky blobs appearing in my bank account, that I knew that there was going to be a day when I got paid, even though it was from myself. How did you kind of adjust to that then? What did you end up doing?
That's a really good question. I'm going backwards in my head, because for the last 4 years I've flattened out everything now so I can take monthly dividends. Yeah. So it's really, I've got the business running to that extent. But I do remember taking big chunks of money as it arrived to and I'd always work out, right, how much do I need for my rent? I lived in London at the time, so I didn't have a car. I can't remember. I do think I still went back to how much do I need every month, though, so that I can actually live.
You talked about nerves and being a bit scared. Was there anything else that you were feeling nervous about, apprehensive about when you made that leap?
I wasn't scared to leave at all. It was definitely the right thing. I was I'd done a lot of inner work. I had a lot of coaching. I was very clear on why I was choosing to leave, what my values were at that time that supported me in that decision-making process. I mean, I even had one of the weirdly chief operating officer is what you call it now from Diageo sit me down and go, tell me why you're leaving, and offer me some roles in Singapore and Dubai. And he said, you choose, where would you like to go? And I was like, no, I'm leaving. And he just couldn't believe it. I think I was probably one of the first people, it sounds a bit weird, but one of the first of a handful who left Diageo to be freelancers, because no one left Diageo. You did not leave by choice. That was just really super unusual. Soon afterwards, it started to become a thing, they would be making people redundant all the time. But yeah, I don't know. I felt okay about it. It was definitely the right thing to do. And I think the thing that made it easier for me was the fact that I called in key people to support me and be part of that network to help me. So I called them, they've all got different names. I had cheerleaders, so people who would just be there to go, yeah, you're awesome, well done, you're making the right decision. I had the ears, so these were people that I could go and sit and speak to who would just listen, and they would ask me all some really great questions. I had the elders, so people who'd gone before me in this journey who I could ask advice, and I had 3 of them that I would regularly turn to and go how do you do this? What does that look like? How do I know I'm making the right decision? I know I've got a 4th one. I can't remember what they were. But they were, the experts. So the experts were accountant, tech, legal. So people who really know their stuff. And I was with all those combined together, it really helped me be okay.
And how have those roles evolved in the last 10 years?
But it's not 10 years.
Oh, yeah. It's a little longer.
It is a bit
2008.
16 years. It changes. So 2008 to 2014, when I was in an associate role, I think having mentors was super important to me. And I was running an associate model, or a subcontractor model, as American listeners might know it. And so for me, it was just being able to be okay with the money. It's I wasn't really thinking about the structure of a big business or anything. So that wasn't a problem. Since we've built SOF and we've got all direct to client relationships, all 4 roles are super important now, because I need that. I need different people at different times to help with different problems or challenges or emotions that flow through.
I imagine with the way that SOF works, this is my guess anyway, you must have jumped into a few of those roles for some of your network.
Oh, yeah, big time.
Is there one in particular that you prefer to embody?
Oh, that's a nice question. I really like it. A mentor. I do love mentoring. And people saying, right, this is where I'm at. Can you help me? Or how do I do this? And so people say to me, will you do coaching for me? I'm like, look, I'm not a qualified coach. And I don't think you want coaching, really. I think you probably want to be told what you need to do. And they'll go, yeah. I said, so should we just call it mentoring? And yes, of course, I'll ask you some questions and then I'll just share with you. And they all laugh and they're like, yeah. I'm like, brilliant. This is going to work well. Because how can you coach someone to go, so how do you think you should design this workshop? Or how do you think you should run your business to make it profitable? I mean, if someone doesn't know the bloody answer, they don't know the bloody answer, Mark. They're not going to sit there and go, oh, hold on. I have this the answer's deep inside me. I can find it. They can't, can they? It just doesn't.
And this is a bit of a controversial, maybe it is a hot take, but I totally agree. Because I've been coaching for 10, 15 years now. And I absolutely come up against this so many times where the assumption that the other person has the key to unlock whatever they're holding is flawed. Because very often, no amount of great questions will help unlock it. If they're just going, I don't know, give it to me.
How do you think you manage HMRC to sort out your b.ed challenge? I don't know. They're doing my nut. They won't answer the phone. Well, that's because they've stopped having a phone line for 6 months of the year. You know, it's like that. You can't coach that. So I think we just have to be clear when someone says I'm a coach. It's like, okay, what exactly does that mean for you? For your participant, your coachee.
And of course, on different sides of the pond, coaching's a broad church, right? It means all sorts of things. In the US, it is more like mentoring, and that's the broadly accepted definition of it. Like, I guess like a sports coach, they are the expert. They've probably been there and done it, and they can give you some good mentoring and suggestions and maybe even advice about what you should do next. That's what people pay for if they're paying for a coach. Whereas the European version is more of the person who's being coached is the expert. The coach's job is to try and fish it out of them.
But I think when it comes to, I think you can fish out behaviours. I don't think you can fish out skills or pure knowledge. But also on the flip side with the American piece, Americans, but I also want to know it's going to be a conversation. I don't want to be told what to do. Does that make sense? So even if I was in a one-on-one, I want it to be a dialogue. I want you to seek to understand my business or seek to understand my situation. And if I ask you for some expertise, feel free to give it to me. But if I don't, please don't ram it down my throat because I am, not going to take it.
Yeah. It's tricky, that, isn't it? I was thinking about that when you were talking about that kind of elder role and the number of conversations I've had about all sorts of things over the years with people who I'd probably put into that category with sentences that started like, what you want to do, right, is X, Y, and Z. And even hearing those words come out of my mouth, I'm starting to shut down and go, okay, that's your story. That's your thing. Yeah. I'm interested to know, but I do need to figure it out for myself at some level and talk it through.
Yeah. And it's sometimes the talking out loud piece that's super helpful for people.
Which is why I think, coming back to SOF, I think there's so much crossover with coaching and facilitation that I think a skilled facilitator who has many models and tools is probably as adept, if not more adept, than a lot of coaches.
So what's interesting is I run an open program called the Flourishing Facilitator, and we've had quite a few coaches come on it saying, oh, my clients are asking me to run workshops, and I've tried and I've done some, but I've suddenly realised it's not the same as just big group coaching. I'm like, correct. Now, are the skills the same? Yes. Is the context different? Yes, absolutely, fundamentally different. And the type of preparation and then the activities that you're going to utilise to support that group get from A to B are more than just questions.
Thinking about courses, if we imagine that freelancing was part of the curriculum somewhere, or maybe there was a course on it, what do you think would be some of the core subjects?
Great question. So there would be 4 tenets, and it's something that I already talk about. So it's called club, client, learner, you, business. So if there were 4 objectives, one would be how to understand what your clients truly want and need and how you can deliver that. For the learners, it would be how to work best with learners or participants to enable them to achieve their goals. You, one of the objectives would be how do you resource yourself day to day, month to month, so that you can be successful as a facilitator. And then business, you you probably didn't start this to run a business, so let's work this one out. Because most people didn't start doing all of this stuff to run a business. And then there comes a point where you suddenly go, oh, invoices. How the do you do that? What? VAT? There's a threat. What's that? There's a threshold thingamajig here in the UK. What do I do when I get close to it? Oh, can I just sit through it? And then you go, oh no, I've just got a massive bill for tax. So that would be probably 4 of it. Maybe I'll bring this all back into the mentorship club.
That's wonderful. I love that. And I think a lot of our listeners will sympathise with working out each of those different elements, especially the you piece. I think that's often overlooked. Kind of how do you look after you and make sure that you can bring yourself to all of those things. I remember some of the best advice, and we're talking about advice here, not coaching. Some of the best advice I've ever got was actually a question, and I interpreted it as advice. I had like several weeks, just like back to back, loads and loads of delivery, lots and lots of workshops happening, meeting. I was flying here, there, and everywhere. And the person I was working with at the time, they looked at my diary, and without an awful lot of judgment, they just asked me, Mark, who gets the best version of you this week? And it just kind of caught me off guard. It's like, oh gosh. I mean, and the short answer was nobody gets the best version of me, but least of all the people who I really wanted to get the best version of me, with my kind of my family, or, you know, the people who mean the most to me, because I was an absolute husk by the end of that 2-week period. And the poor client that I was working with on the afternoon of that Friday at the end of those 2 weeks. Friday afternoon. It must have been like 20%, if I was being generous, of me that I brought to that session.
And so 2 things go through my head as well. It's like, we have to learn to say no when you work for yourself as facilitators, trainers, coaches, because to the second part, you need to work out your week. Like, how do you divide up your week so that you are running your business, managing, networking, and also delivering? And best will in the world, even when I was in my 30s, and I probably thought, yeah, I can deliver every day of the week. It is exhausting, people. So, and as you hit your 50s, let's be even clearer, it's even more exhausting. So be really mindful. How do you manage your week? And I'd be encouraging you not to say yes to every single opportunity to deliver. And I think people feel they have to say yes when the client offers up dates, because they're worried that if they say no, the client will go somewhere else. But I just think if you're in that state of planning with a client, I would be giving them the dates that you can actually do, and tailing your week with space. So I often say I will deliver client work Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, but I do my business work on a Monday and a Friday.
And when a client does come and ask you to do work on a Friday or a Monday, do you have anything kind of rehearsed or something that you've kind of refined over the years that allows you to say no in the way that's...
Firstly, I do look at my diary and go, if that is the only day of the week, and I've got enough space in the week that I'm not going to be exhausted. So funny enough, I have just said, yes, I will do a Friday afternoon delivery virtual. And I've looked at the rest of the week and gone, no, but I'm okay to do that. I've got space. But if it been at the end of, say, 4 days of back-to-back delivery, there's no way I was going to say yes to a 5th day. We have to just be very clear with our clients, and it's okay to have an honest conversation with them and just go, I'm unable to. And I just want to say I always offer solution. So if you just said, no, I can't do those dates, that would irritate anybody. But I think if you say, I'm unable to do that date you've suggested there, here's 2 other options. Give them options. And if you need to explain why you can't do that one particular date, tell them.
It's such a big trap that people fall into. And we've talked about it in previous episodes around how to say no in a way that it's compassionate to everybody, including yourself. Because, the temptation is just to say yes to as much as possible because of that kind of feast and famine aspect that can come in and creep in, especially in early years of setting up a business.
Definitely.
If I say no to this, will it ever come up again? Will they ever ask me again? What is the message that I'm sending them? There's all this stuff that kind of plays out, isn't there?
Definitely.
But I love the idea of having a kind of a solution-based approach that makes it easy for them to accept your no.
Exactly. I think people appreciate being given some solutions and some options versus just the outright no. I think that was something I was always taught. It's okay to say no and give me some other options. Otherwise, just no sounds belligerent and painful.
Yeah.
No, don't want to do that.
Yeah, you can't get away with that in a lot of industries. I'm thinking about, I remember during the pandemic, I did some work with a number of universities, and I was staggered by the number of academics who were just allowed to say no to just all sorts because of their reputation and their ego and the fear of what might happen if you push back against the no.
Wow.
But there was one institution who I won't name, but they just had a bunch of people come out and say, no, do you know what? We're not doing any virtual facilitation or lectures or anything like that. We'll wait until it blows over. Keep on paying me though. And they just got away with it. It was unbelievable. I was kind of
shocked.
I don't know how that could have happened in any other industry.
Oh, it definitely happens in other organisations.
Yeah.
You just don't know about it. When you think about the banking system, like there were certain banks for sure, the way they operate and how the senior people sort of put their foot down and said, everyone's to be back in the office. You've all got to be back at your desks. That's fear-based.
Yeah, and still very much is. I think a lot of people, assume that most people are motivated by that as well. I'm thinking back to that conversation where you were offered the role in Singapore and Dubai, how the other person was thinking that conversation was going to go.
He was pretty good though. No, he was being very, he just wanted to, he said he started it by saying, I'm just curious to understand where this has all come from. As he said, with a pseudo-American Newcastle accent.
Oh, okay. So in the last episode, our guest, who was Viv Cole, posed a question for our next guest, not knowing that it would be you.
Okay.
And Viv's question was, what is your favourite book?
I've got two that always come to mind when I get asked this question, and for same and different reasons. So the first one is Bounce by Matt Said, and the second one is The Rise of Superman by Stephen Kotler. So Bounce is all about is talent, nature or nurture. And I just loved it for just bringing, like Matt Said just brings together lots of different veins of thinking and evidence that sort of suggests, he argues for both sides of the coin, nature and nurture. He came through the nurture route as he tells his story, because for those of you who might know the name but not know he was an Olympian in the UK for ping pong, for table tennis. And he talks about the nurture that got him to be the standard and the capability he is. So that really resonated, just loads of things all coming together. And then The Rise of Superman, I can't even remember how I got my hands on this book, but I then devoured all of Stephen Kotler's work. And it's about flow states in extreme sports, men and women, and how finding flow states has a massive impact on our creativity and how we live and how we do things. And again, because I'm very sporty and I was reading this book, I was like, oh my God, I can relate to this. And it was just so, I didn't know it was a thing. And then just learning that these moments of just like time stands still, you just know what's going to happen next, and completion is flow. And it's just incredible.
I love that. Thank you for the answer, and thank you, Viv, for the question. I've not read either of those books, so I'll pop them on my wish list. Maybe over the Christmas period I might be able to delve into a few of those.
Yeah.
It's making me wonder about you and your flow state, Kirsty. What do you have a sense of what that looks like for you these days on an everyday basis? When you know you're in flow state, what do you tend to be doing? How does it feel?
I can tell you, it's two different situations. So either I'm doing some form of endurance exercise, so running, swimming, cycling is where I have my best thinking. Just epiphanies come to me. I can muddle through things in my head. I'm normally out for like 2 hours, so that helps. And then the other thing, I listen to music, and it's Ludovic Einaudi, and I just put the music on, and I can then create and write and get things written up on my computer quite easily as well. And I always use like the Pomodoro technique of 25 minutes on, 5 minutes off. And that allows me to get through more thinky type of work.
Cool. So there's a very physical state for kind of problem solving and wrestling with things, and then a more still, calm state that's more auditory.
Yeah, it's auditory, and it's but I'm in writing mode to get things written for a client or written up for me and my team.
Wow. I'll have to give it a go.
Now you've asked me that question, I'm like, oh yeah, that's what I do. And then the final one would be, I guess, when I'm teaching, and it is teaching or versus facilitating. So when I'm in teach mode, virtually or in person, that's definitely flow state, because I often just get the starting point and the trigger, and I can just go and I can lose the time, but I know it's like I'm there, but I can almost be in the third person, observing myself doing what I do.
And what do you notice when you're in that state?
Everything feels very easy. And you just I have an innate knowing of what to say and what to do next. Not in an ego way of like, this is exactly what needs to happen, but it's almost just like oh, okay, this is where we need to go now. Or this would be of benefit, or this would serve the group.
I was kind of had this in my head that I might ask you this at some point. So I'm glad it's come up, because I've been sort of facilitating with groups for some years now. And there was something that happens sometimes with time that I've never really been able to put my finger on. But it is, for me, it's definitely connected to flow state, where depending on the kind of facilitation you're doing, you might have a kind of plan in your head, or you might be going something a bit more organic and more emergent. But what might feel like a session that's about to run out of time often suddenly resolves itself by the time that time comes around.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Have you got any sense of what happens then? What's that about?
I haven't. But now you say it, I'm like, yeah, I know what you mean. It's like you start the day and you know clearly where you're going to go, and then you hit the messy middle, as I call it. Like it all feels like it's going horribly wrong, and I go to inner doubt of, oh my God, have I taken us down a path of this isn't right? And then we often get to lunchtime, and then I pause and I'm like, okay, let's just work this one through. And then it's like, trust the process. Trust the void, and lean back into the outcomes that you're seeking to achieve. Also take it to the group as well. And then suddenly, a lot of the time, it starts to sort itself out.
Part of me, because my background's in psychology, so I think about kind of things like Parkinson's law, that the idea that kind of the work expands to fill the space, and whether that can also be true of a facilitation space. Actually, the discussion will either expand or contract to fill whatever space you give it and the space you hold for it. But then I don't know how it works. There must be, it's almost a bit like, what do they call it when you are speaking to spirits with the glass? What's that called?
Yeah, a Ouija board.
Yeah, someone has to be pushing it. And it's either the facilitator or the group or both of you are pushing it towards whenever you have to finish.
Okay, but what is it?
What is it?
So you've got you've got the group, and then you've just said it.
So in most contexts, it's the content of whatever we're there to explore. And that might be emerged content, or it might be stuff that's been kind of pre-designed.
See, the outcomes.
It is the outcomes.
The other thing that came into my head is the system within which you have created through the connection of you to the group and the group to one another. There's like multiple circles. There's a little circle for Mark. There's a bigger circle for the participants. And then you are sat in a system. You're sat in a circle, a system. I wonder if that is the it.
Yeah.
That plays with time.
Yes.
And also time is a human construct. So let's be really clear about that. So we created it to help us. And actually, do we truly understand what time is other than the ticking hands of a clock? Don't got to be profound.
This has got very philosophical all of a sudden, hasn't it? But actually, you're right. I think it is. It's relative as well. So whilst we might experience that speeding up and kind of catching up in one way, members of the group who aren't seeing the system in that way might just experience it as regular time passing.
Yeah. Oh, another conversation for another time. I love it.
Did you want to leave a question for our next guest, Kirsty?
You can ask you that. What one piece of advice would you give to someone starting their own business?
Beautiful question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Would you like to have a stab at that one from your perspective?
Oh. Oh. Do it anyway and feel the fear. Who said that? That's not from my mouth. But there is something, just if you've got an urge. Okay. Oh, now I'm going backwards. Just because you think you want to do it doesn't mean to say you should. Because I think you need to know that coming out of an organisation is hard work, especially at this time. So we are in a really difficult period of economically and running our own businesses. It's a challenging time. So if you are choosing to leave, please, please, please have a plan, have your ducks in a row and have 6 months worth of salary saved up, because unless you have got associateships or clients already lined up, it's hard out here.
I'm so pleased you said that, because I think in the last 2 weeks, I must have had that same conversation with about 5 or 6 different people going, oh my gosh, this year's been really hard. And things that were certain suddenly seem incredibly uncertain in this industry.
Yeah. I've been saying this since actually this time last year. So maybe I need to get my oracle ball out and go, what am I going to predict for next year?
We can push some glasses around a board if you like, me and you together.
Should we do that?
How do you feel about, because I'm thinking about other people's reaction to that challenge. And I think people with a more cautious mindset might go, oh, I probably need to have like a plan B and a plan C, just in case this maybe doesn't work out. What are your thoughts on that, if someone was thinking about going freelance at this stage?
If you want to leave where you are currently, is it you're leaving the business? Are you leaving a manager, or are you leaving a job? Like, what is your motivation to be leaving? Are you moving towards, i.e. you want to create something and being freelance helps you create that? Or are you moving away from something? So am I running away because I don't like the boss, or I don't like the organization, or I don't like the job I'm being asked to do at this point in time? So I think you need to test your motivations as to why you're choosing to go into freelancing. And I would do that with a coach. Is my big, strong recommendation. Our brains can't bloody fight their way out of a paper bag. So you're never going to work your way through this one, by the way, because it's going to be full of an emotional roller coaster. Because one day you're going to go, this is a bloody epic idea. Look, I can rule the world of freelancing. And then other days, the little gremlin sat on your right shoulder is going to whisper in your ear and go, don't be so bloody ridiculous, Kirsty. This is the biggest waste of time you'll ever have. So please work with a coach. I think then when you do decide, say, let's for argument's sake go, yeah, I am going to do my own thing. I'm going to go freelance. So there's a presupposition in NLP that says the person with the most flexible behavior gets the best outcome. Something like that. Anyone with NLP is going to be ranting at your audio right now. That's not what it says. My attitude is, the more options you give yourself, the more likely you're going to succeed. So if that means you have a plan B, C, D, and E, go for it. My backup plan was always, I'll go and stack shelves at Tesco. I've never had to step towards it at all.
Yeah. It's funny you should say that, because I remember working in a corporate job where one of my colleagues used to fantasize about going and stacking shelves in Tesco, because they'd worked out they could probably earn the same amount of money for a lot less hassle.
True.
Sometimes they can really... Yeah. Yeah.
We did at Christmas time, because working in the drinks industry, Christmas is being the busiest period. Yeah. So Diageo, for a long period, everybody, head office included, we'd all go out into trade, and we'd be given about 5 or 6 supermarkets in our local area. And it was our responsibility to go in every day to those supermarkets for 2 weeks and check that they were the alcohol shelves, not just our brands, but the alcohol shelves were fully stocked. And you were there to help those supermarkets be able to deliver a great service.
I really like your answer to the last question as well. I think there's so much in that mental shift of becoming a freelancer and the identity work that goes on. It can really help to have that unpicked by a coach, because you're putting down something, back to what we talked about earlier on, this idea of this really rehearsed patterns and systems of 9 to 5, and having a label that is your job title that you can easily just parrot back when someone says, what do you do then? And you suddenly just, it's not there. You have to come up with a very different answer to that. That often involves some sort of sales pitch for your business, and that might be the first time that you've done that.
Yeah, true.
There's a lot of unpacking and unraveling that can be really helpful to do.
I agree.
Thank you for that, Kirsty. So we've got to the end of the podcast, which means there's only one more question left to ask, and it's the question we ask all of our guests, and that is, what is your day rate?
I don't do day rates.
Okay. Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah. I saw that come off and I was like, please. Okay, go on a rant and then I'll come back and answer your question.
Rant away.
You have to move away from day rates, people. As soon as you do X time equals X pounds, dollars, euros, you're going to get screwed. And what I mean by that is you're saying my time is worth something. No. What you have to give your client, the outcomes you're helping them achieve, is the value, not your time. So please, if you are a facilitator and a trainer and you are creating solutions for your clients and you're creating learning journeys, programs, please put a value on the outcome, not a value on your time. So that's what I mean. I don't have a day rate. We have projects. I see everything as a project now. Also, if you're a facilitator and a trainer, even a coach, if a client asks you, will you do a workshop? The answer should be no. Because one workshop is like, I say, I will not do a one-hit wonder workshop. Because especially in the learning space, not so facilitation, but learning space, no learning happens in one day, people. You know that for yourself intuitively. We need to be telling our clients that as well. The brain can't cope also doing everything in one day or 2, 3, 4 days. So it's how do you split that out and make it a learning journey so that people can assimilate what they're learning. Here endeth my lesson.
Thank you. I was smiling all the way through that because I was like, yes, preach it. I've been practicing my no's lately, and I did say a big no to somebody who wanted me to come and run a 2-hour psychological safety workshop in an organisation that is notoriously unpsychologically safe. It wasn't going to do anything. No matter who was in the room, nothing was going to happen as a result of it.
It sounds like there's a good reason for no's on 2 counts. One, it's just a 2-hour session. That's not going to make any change. And I know fundamentally you're not psychologically safe. Why would I want to put my name to that in your industry, your business?
Big time.
No. Can I just say something else as well about money? Please remember you are worth more. And if anyone ever offers you £250 a day, even as an associate, please can people start saying no to that as well? Because I've heard horror stories of people flying out to Dubai to run a workshop at £250 a day. And I'm like, no. And then being asked to pay for their own travel. Doubly no.
Yikes.
It's scary.
And I guess this is where the benefit of networks and communities really come into their own, don't they? Because I think the more people are open about this type of thing and these kind of requests and practices that go on the other side, on the client side, the more we can join forces and push back against that and go, actually,
Massively.
no, that's not okay, because it's just a race to the bottom.
Yeah. And if anyone in the community of your community is sort of questioning like day rates and rates and how to price and saying, oh, but I'm told it's this low amount, we need to have these conversations quite openly with each other, because we did some pricing research back in 2023. I'll repeat it in 25. But what became really clear was there's every rate for a day's delivery, from an associate rate at £500 through to direct client rates for £5,000 a day. That's delivery. That's not even with design. There's everything out there. There's a whole spectrum. And I know I've just spoken about day rates at that point, but that was the only way I could bloody well measure it. But I want you to know, like, yeah, it's okay to charge 4 figures. It really is. And if the client says no, it's their prerogative, but it's also your prerogative to give your value to somebody as well.
Thank you, Kirsty. Wow, what a wide-ranging discussion we've had. It's been wonderful. Indeed. I think there's so much in there. I'm thinking about your cheerleaders and ears and elders and experts and how we could all probably play each of those in towards somebody in our network and hopefully improve the way things work in our industry for the better. So thank you so much for sharing what you've shared. How can people find out more about what you do and how to connect with you?
LinkedIn, obviously, Kirsty Lewis, the website, schoolofacilitation.com. And I have a lot of fun on Instagram and School of Facilitation. So come find me on there. I do stories every day, so have a lot of good chat.
Fabulous. And we probably should shout out your own podcast, A Facilitator's Journey.
Thank you.
As well. We'll leave links to all of those things in the show notes for this episode.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me today, Mark.
Oh, you are so welcome. Thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed this episode, let us know by leaving a review on your favourite podcast app. It really makes a difference. And if you want to learn more about how L&D Free Spirits can lift up your freelancing business, you can find out more information at ldfreespirits.com.